Greetings of the day, everyone. I'm privileged to welcome you all in the third edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University, powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions, a platform that celebrates wisdom, experiences, narratives, and notions from all walks of life. I'm Yash Dixit, delighted to be your anchor for today's session. Conflicts in Mahabharata by Mallar Chatterjee in conversation with Indrani Gangulee. Born in family of academians, Mr. Mallar Chatterjee has a natural interest in mythology, especially the Mahabharata. In his own submission, he is essentially an escapist and has luckily found a quiet shelter in the realm of myths, far away from the present reality that relentlessly confuses him. Mallar sir has written two books based on the story of Mahabharata. His debut novel, Yudhishthira, The Fallen Pandora, published in 2017, is an imaginary autobiography of Yudhishthira, who relentlessly tells the events of Mahabharata, giving a first-hand account of his journey through the layers of realization. His second book, Shakuni, The Dice of Doom, published in 2019, is a kind of conspiracy fiction and is completely different from the first book in style, taste, and treatment, although both are of same series. Postgraduate in economics, Mallar sir is employed with the central government. He was born and brought up in the suburban towns of Naihati and is presently based in Kolkata. It's an honor to have you with us, Mr. Mallar Chatterjee. And this gets even more delightful as we have Miss Indrani Gangulee, who will be in conversation with him as the moderator. Miss Indrani Gangulee is the managing editor of Readomania and has edited over 175 fiction and non-fiction titles under its various imprints. She has over 18 years of experience in all genre of editing, shifting gears from news, academics, science, technology, medicine, lifestyle, and law. Though fiction remains her first love. She has done her graduate from St. Xavier College, University of Calcutta, majoring in English literature and her post-graduation in journalism from Indian Institute of Mass Communication, specializing in print journalism. She started her career in newsroom of leading National Daily Hindustan Times, where she was in charge of national international desk. She has edited over 400 high academic books as well for for many known well publishers like Oxford University Press, Palgrave Macmillan, Collins India, LexisNexis, and John Wayne. She is creative writing mentor. Miss Indrani also has a brief stint in teaching language and composition to undergraduate students. I once again welcome you, sir, and I once again welcome you, ma'am. Also, before moving ahead, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the support of Readomania Publications as their association is valuable to OCLF. Now, my dear audience, you are about to experience a conversation between two very dynamic individuals. So, without skipping a moment, I humbly invite Ms. Indrani Gangulee ma'am to lead us ahead.
Thank you so much, Yash. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, OCLF, for this wonderful opportunity. Mahabharata is one of my most favorite epics, and it's a timeless tale. And who better to discuss its intrigues and nuances than Mr. Mallar Chatterjee, who is passionate about the epic and his in-depth knowledge about Mahabharata is legendary. Hi, Mallar.
Hi, Indrani. Am I audible?
Mallar, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, at the outset, Mallar, Mahabharata is a very complex and layered epic. What do you think is the single most prominent conflict in the epic?
I think to begin with, the most prominent and the most quintessential conflict of the Mahabharata is certainly the one between the Dharma and Adharma. That everyone knows that, and everyone can easily identify that there is a clear polarization between Dharma and Adharma. We can notice one thing: we don't generally say it's a crisis between it's a clash between good and evil. whenever we speak about Mahabharata, which these two terms we conveniently use in the case of Ramayana, or about the battle between the demons and gods. We can conveniently use these words, the goods and evils, but we seldom use these terms in the case of Mahabharata. Rather, we choose a more complex, more what I said, more nuanced concepts of. We invoke more nuanced concepts of dharma and adharma. Why is this? Because I think Mahabharata is actually from a much darker period, where these concepts of good and evil become inadequate. And if we can understand, if we can equate dharma with truth, we can understand this even better, because we all can realize one thing, that truth is not always digestible. Some parts of truth is not always palatable. So dharma is not there are some darker elements in dharma which cannot be straight away equated to good. Similarly, adharma appears to be slightly more agreeable than evil. It is less dark than evil. So just like I think it's the color gray compares with black. So this grayness, it's the most quintessential conflict in the Mahabharata. I personally believe that.
And that is why we say it's layered, because it's not binary. It's not good and bad. It's layered
Absolutely.
with, yeah.
Absolutely.
Every
The side
character
that
has good and bad elements. There is a reason why a character has done what he has done or she has done. And this probably makes these characters, the characters of Mahabharata, more believable, more human.
more
Don't you think so?
related.
Compared to
Exactly.
Ramayana?
Hello. I didn't get you properly. Your connection was a little bit off.
No, I was just adding to what you said, is that compared to Ramayana, Mahabharata does not have binary characters, and it's not doing what they're doing, and that is what makes the characters of Mahabharata more believable, more
It's a
human-like.
kind of a mixed bag that you get in the Mahabharata. In this context, I can also add that the way the Pandavas won the war. It may appear quite questionable to many, and they didn't win the war fair and all very fairly. They used some unfair means to win the war, and which was but at the same time they are said to be on the dharma's side. So this is very it's a very intriguing thing, that where end justifies the means. I think Indrani's connection is off. I think she's off here.
I'm sorry for that glitch. I'm sorry.
Alright.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Perfect.
Sorry, I'm sorry. There was some issue with my network. Okay, moving on. Mallar, Mahabharata has the Pandavas versus the Kauravas. Among the Pandavas, you chose to write about Yudhishthira. Can you hear me, Mallar?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was saying, of all the characters in Mahabharata, you chose to write your first book on Yudhishthira, who,
Mhm.
on the face of it, does not look like one very dynamic character. So why Yudhishthira?
It happened almost instinctively at the initially. And in fact, I can confess that whenever I found myself writing on the Mahabharata, at the same time I found myself on Yudhishthira. So I didn't know that it was not a very conscious decision on my part to choose Yudhishthira. But later on, I thought over it, and at the hindsight, now I feel that Yudhishthira's crisis, his personal crisis, some way or some way or other, it appears. It doesn't appear of his crisis was not of epical dimension. Rather, it was very relatable. Yudhishthira, comes up as a person whom we can we can believe that we have seen such a person. We know that person. We can understand the suffering this person is going through. But that cannot be said about other characters. Yudhishthira's crisis was so personal, so subtle. And another thing about Yudhishthira that attracted me was that Yudhishthira was a loser in the first half of his life. Then he started to become cleverer. He started to become smarter, and he started to win war. Started to win in life. So there's a very slow and silent metamorphosis of a person. So it appears very, although it is apparently it's not dramatic, but the drama flows like a subterranean river. This metamorphosis about Yudhishthira. I think Yudhishthira reminds us that everyone born in this planet has a chance to do something better. If he or a few bad chapters in his life doesn't mean his story is over. He can still bounce back, provided he gets his basics right. He follows some simple golden rules of life. So Yudhishthira, it's a kind of a reminder. It's a kind of an optimism that every single person who was not born that spectacular, who was not bestowed with some dazzling or flamboyance or some prominent talents, still he can make it count.
Okay, now in the Unfallen Pandora, you have written a very complex line. It says, "Who said the Kurukshetra war was the greatest war ever fought?" Uh, you have pointed towards an underlying discord between the Pandavas, who are on the exterior they look like one unit. They take uniform decisions. They have one wife. They share her, and they have very strict rules about how they go about in their life. And they follow Yudhishthira as their leader. He's the main decision maker. But there is a subtle discord, as we find out when we read the Unfallen Pandora. Would you elaborate on that?
Yes, I'd love to, because Indrani, I just want to raise one question to you. Do you agree with me that generally virtuous people, they have more tendency to show envy, and to feel envious about others' achievements? Because I personally believe so. Many may not agree with me, but it's my personal observation that more virtuous people have greater tendency to feel envious, because they have a certain notion about themselves, and they have a certain notion about if a concept of superiority, an impression of superiority about themselves, and they want to protect that. So they become very sensitive, very sensitive. They become very wary of the other persons are just are becoming brighter than him, or becoming more successful than him. It becomes, and these Pandava brothers, all of them were very virtuous people, and they were virtuous in their own ways. So moreover, they were siblings. So there, and such so brilliant people, they are staying together. Moreover, they are not only brothers, they were co-husbands as well. So
Yeah.
they were compelled to love a single woman. So how can their life be very easy? There must have been some secret tensions between them, because they had some uh, you just set aside their common wife, but even between themselves they have some elements of jealousy towards each other, because they have got successes in life they had, but in spite of the fact that they were all that their own shares of qualities. So
And but
it is
still,
very
you feel Arjuna got the major share of the accolades, isn't it?
everything. In fact, I clearly wrote one thing that Yudhishthira was saying in one place that he took the better of both the things I loved in this planet most. One was Krishna and the other was Krishna. Krishna and Krishna. That means Krishna and Draupadi. And Arjuna got the better share of both of them. So these things, and not only about Arjuna and Yudhishthira, even the relationship between Bhima and Arjuna, even the relationship between the twins, they must have been they cannot be very simple, and because they none of the brothers was a simple person. They were extraordinary person, and they must, and being extraordinary, they're bound to become complex characters. So five complex characters living very peacefully, it doesn't happen.
So you've shown Yudhishthira as a very complex, as an anger-filled, guilt-ridden person who introspects the very epitome of dharma. What made you do so?
I appreciate your choice of words about Yudhishthira, that my book that he just narrated his story in an anger-filled and guilt-ridden manner. So, in the first place, we have to. When I just wrote the book, I wrote it in the form of an autobiography, right? And uh, the most indispensable quality that one autobiography should have is that it must be truthful. So the person who is supposed to write that autobiography must confess everything, must not hide anything from the readers. So assuming myself as Yudhishthira, so I had to write it in a very self-deprecating manner. He inflicted assaults on himself. He didn't whitewash his evil deeds. I won't say, sorry to use the word evil deeds. He didn't want to soft pedal his own mistakes. Rather, he just took all the responsibilities for all the mistakes he committed, and he came out in a very candid manner. A Dharmaputra's autobiography. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
What in a simple sentence is that a Dharmaputra's autobiography must be truthful. So he mustn't spare himself. So from this idea, I just chose to use that tone in that book.
One may say that the storyline of Mahabharata is something that may happen even today. And it's also a Bengali saying that what has not happened in Mahabharata will probably not happen again in this world.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what do you think makes Mahabharata so relevant even today? How is the story, the sub stories, even the smaller episodes, how do they resonate so much even with today's readers?
I can say that I can say this with a very simple example, Indrani. If you set aside this divinity and this extraterrestrial part and those miracles of this story, so what
Which is
remains of the
the
story?
tropes of mythology, anyway.
Right. And there's hyperboles and exaggerations and these things and ornamentations. If you set aside those things, what remains of the story is very timeless. I can just point it out with a very simple example. Do you find the similarity Can you compare the war of Kurukshetra with the Second World War? I can do. There are many similarities between Hitler and Duryodhana. Sometimes Mussolini looks like Shakuni. It reminds me of Shakuni, and the basic issue was the same. So if you just concentrate on the basic story of the Mahabharata, this is timeless. It can happen anywhere, because the reason is that humans have not changed much. The evolution that happened, it only happened in the exterior. It's my opinion, but in the interior, the basic instincts, they haven't changed much. People, human beings, were greedy in the past. They are still greedy in the present, and they'll continue to remain greedy in the future. Same for they had the similar kind of intensity intensity to love in the past. They are, these kind of feelings are instincts are unperishable.
So the basic human instinct of the hunger for power.
Yes. So what he wanted to say is that the basic human ingredients didn't change over time. Didn't change much over time. Yes, their priorities changed, their circumstances changed, their objectives changed. But where can a human being escape? Hiding with his basic ingredients intact. They cannot escape from themselves. We cannot escape from ourselves, because of all the seeds that our forefathers they sowed. We were still carrying these inside us.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Mahabharata is such an obsolete thing, and I think we don't have we don't have the right to say so. Nothing is obsolete. Everything is possible.
No, absolutely not. And that is why so many people are still writing on the Mahabharata. Different people have different interpretations of this probably the same episode. There are multiple interpretations of it, and all equally engaging. So I guess Mahabharata will never ever lose its importance.
Not only engaging it, all of them. In fact, I have read many versions of the Mahabharata and even modern adaptations. All of them appears very legitimate, very believable.
Yeah. So for your second book, Mallar, why did you choose a character like Shakuni as your protagonist?
Yes, it was a rather conscious decision to to write. As the first book, for the first book I chose a very bright character. I thought that I should experiment with a dark character this time. So it was a rather conscious decision, and I applied some tricks in writing the second one. Of Shakuni. So it was more for for the contrast.
But in popular narrative, Shakuni is always portrayed as the villain, as a negative character. But you have provided an alternative narration. What made you come up with this alternative narration where, without spilling too much about the main story, how did you conceive the idea of showing the human side of Shakuni? Why he did what he did?
Yes, I have a counter question to you, Indrani. Have you seen any villain in your life?
See, my villain might not be your villain. Yeah. So
exactly.
It depends.
But yes, I asked this question because I don't think I have seen a true villain in my life, but I have come across many persons whom I don't like. But that doesn't mean that they are villains, because yes, the side of those people, those side those disagreeable people came up with a bad side to me, but that doesn't mean the entire person was that bad, because I don't know their side of story, why they behave that way with me. So I cannot say that this person is a villain. So if I have not yet Just a minute, please. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, yes, you are, Mallar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for the glitch. My connection also went off here. So what I wanted to say is that villain concept is a very blatant term. Even if a villain, there's no one is villain because we label someone as villain just because we don't know their true story. Why did they have to do? Did they choose to behave this way? Don't know that. I feel like we don't have the right to call anyone villains. And in the Mahabharata, Shakuni's story was not very well represented. Shakuni's background was not well documented in Mahabharata. Why he did, what caused the rancor line. So I think for the example of a new kind of Shakuni, which could just even could explain his darker sides.
Now, coming to another very, very prominent character, Bhishma Pitama. Now, he was a very ambivalent personality. Did he really hate Satyavati? What do you have to say? What is your opinion about probably the tallest character in Mahabharata, Bhishma?
Yes. Well, I agree with you that he's definitely the tallest. He's one of the tallest characters of the Mahabharata. But frankly speaking, although Mahabharata he has been portrayed in a very glorified, in a very glorious manner in the Mahabharata, I somehow suspect his real intentions. Because there are many things in his character that I find hard to digest, or rather, they don't appear very much convincing to me. For one example, that he was so why did he just okay, to get his father married for a second time, he abdicated his throne. That even this much can be believable, but he even chose celibacy just to get his father a second wife. This I think I find a little bit stretching. So was there any secret story behind that? Why was Vishnu in such a dire haste to you know to shun the most to avoid the most primal pleasure of life? So I suspect his intentions little bit. Whether there was any physical problems or that, or there were other problems that was
Which you
um,
hinted at in your book.
soft pedaled into a flowery story. Whether that's one thing, but that's a little. I know. I at the same time I don't want to sound cheap, which in this regard, but. Another very serious thing is that why did he fight for Duryodhana at all? Once again, his side is not that doesn't sound very doesn't appear very convincing. He claims to Yudhishthira that oh yes, I am just he provides me food, and that's why I have to fight for him. Is Can this be acceptable? He being a family member of the Kuru dynasty, he has his own right to just have food and this all kind of he's an aristocrat. He's a royal family member. So that doesn't mean that he has to wear those armor and take up weapons and have to fight aside who actually he supports them. So it's a very unconvincing and an explanation of Bhishma, and sometimes that leads me to suspect that he actually perhaps wanted to fight in Duryodhana's favor, and whether he actually wanted the destruction of Hastinapur as a revenge, because he was denied his legitimate share, and did he really want to take and revenge on Satyavati in this manner? So this is this kind of thoughts give me kind of goosebumps, you know, and it is I'd love to think this way. Whether it will be very interesting if these thoughts can be elaborated into more intricate details. But
Mallar,
ambivalent
what is your
personality.
view? Yes.
Yes, I completely agree with your point that he is a very ambivalent personality and very unclear. He's an opaque personality. I tell you, he's not even transparent. Although he has got all the
No,
accolades, but Visha is not a very. He doesn't. It's a very personal opinion. He doesn't come up as a very transparent personality.
yeah, he's someone who probably is holding a lot of secrets inside, and we never really know the true story. We can
Exactly.
interpret
I
his
just wanted to.
actions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted
Okay. No.
to.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question, Mallar. This is a question which is very close to my heart. What is your view on the depiction of women in the Mahabharata? Do you think that Mahabharata would have been an entirely different narrative had it not been for Satyavati's jealousy and territorial instincts, or Gandhari's pledge, or Amba's curse, or Kunti's bowing down to patriarchy, or Draupadi's thirst for revenge? Uh, what do you think Mahabharata would be, even though it was written in a society which was primarily patriarchal? But the women have had a very important role in the story.
Absolutely. I once again I agree with you. That's the women portrayed in the Mahabharata are absolutely breathtaking women. Right from Satyavati, Gandhari, Kunti, Draupadi, and many minor, even one very favorite lady character, female character of the Mahabharata is Hidimba. Hmm.
Hidimba.
So yeah, so they're absolutely brilliant characters, you know, and the way the women has been portrayed, you know, it actually. Yes, you said right that it was a patriarchal, society, and there was some exploitations against women, like forcing them into niyoga marriages and these things.
Yes.
These are kind of circumstantial exploitation. But at the same time, I can tell you that at the time of the Mahabharata, there was it was a gripping war between men and women, because men were not very this battle between men and women were not so lopsided. At it would become later. It would become in the more in the classical period of society of history, or in the medieval age of history. We'll see that women's stature deteriorated, and the women and the men absolutely bulldozed women, and they robbed the women of their rights and even these things, and they were exploited mercilessly, even in towards middle ages. But if you compare the status of women in the Mahabharata as compared to this time in the later periods of history, you'll find that women were were very good, opponents of women. If you just it's a conflict between, if you concentrate on the conflict between men and women, cannot say that men won hands up. They had their real challenge, and the way the women, the Satyavati, you mentioned Satyavati's machinations, and she absolutely charted the course of the Mahabharata. I completely agree with you
Yes.
once again. And not only Satyavati's case, even yes, Kunti's Niyoga, this and she mothered all these Pandavas. Three of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna, was mothered by Kunti, whose exact identity of their fathers were not known, and that's why they went down in the legend as that they are God's children. So that means it's but who were their actual fathers? But there are many speculations that whether Vidur was the real father of Yudhishthira. Listen, but we are just going a bit off track. But coming back to the importance of the women is that yes, they were exploited, and they were utilized many times against their will. But that doesn't mean that they were smothered, and they were not hard, because even in the Mahabharata there is a very simple example instance I can tell you. Sorry, it's from Ramayana. I can tell you that after when Sita was rescued from Ravana's clutches and brought to Ajodhya, a fisherman's wife made some nasty comments about Sita, and that comment was taken very seriously, not only by her husband but also by the king himself, and that led him to banish Sita. So that means that the women's voice were not even the women's were strangulated. Their voice was heard at that time. And then in
So
the
at
later,
many levels, there are many, like social issues that are highlighted in the Mahabharata. Don't you
yes.
think so? I mean,
So
right
come
from
again.
gender inequality, you know,
Come again. I didn't get you properly.
I'm saying a lot of social issues are highlighted in the Mahabharata, isn't it?
Yes.
Social
Mahabharata
issues
is
which
a
are relevant even today.
treasure trove of everything, everything. So how can Mahabharata cannot be conceptualized without touching on these social issues and the and spirituality and the ideology and the philosophy. It just it is. Mahabharata is everything. Like you yourself just said that what didn't happen in Mahabharata, it's not in Mahabharata.
Mallar, do you think Draupadi and Karna were mutually infatuated, although they always, showed this overt sense of hatred for each other? But there was a lot of, love between them. Don't you think? A lot of attraction, if not love.
See, Indrani, it's an absolutely a matter of speculation, and of and there were no overt reference of any mutual infatuation between Draupadi and Karna in Mahabharata. It's nowhere, but there are some little hints that can help us such a feeling, at least from Karna's side. From the Draupadi's side, I am not aware of any such whether any indications whether she had anything from Karna. But Karna had some complex feeling about Draupadi. Well, in fact, one instance I can tell you when during that stripping sequence when Dushashan was pulling
Mm.
his sari. So at that time, Karna made a very nasty comment, and he almost slut shamed Draupadi in front of
Mm.
others, and just
Mm.
pointing at that she had 5 husbands, and
Yeah.
she had a very condemnable comment about Draupadi. But a little later, when Draupadi just requested Dhritarashtra to spare all her husbands from slavery, and Dhritarashtra acceded to that, and all of them were freed from slavery. Karna said that I have not heard of any other woman who can do this much for her husbands. Hmm. So it's an absolutely like an navigator. She steered their husbands out of dire straits. So I just tell you, just a person is making two comments about the same woman in such a short span of time. Doesn't it point towards a very complicated feeling? So these
Correct.
kind of suggestions make an ignite that at the same time he was abusing her, and then just little later he was praising her like anything. So it was not a very simple kind of thing.
Now, to my penultimate question, I know we are heading towards the end of it. Yudhishthira, the unfallen Pandava. Why did Yudhishthira not fall?
Yes, that's a question. mm, I don't know whether it was a boon for him or it was a curse. I don't know. My question is that I can it brings us to another important question, whether mortality or is actually a curse, or immortality is actually a boon. I have my doubts. Just remember what happened during the last journey. Draupadi fell, and
Mm,
why did he fail in a journey? Because she loved Arjuna more. Now, just tell me,
mm.
can this be a fault that should be punished? Loving someone is a crime, and that person who gambled away with his wife, he gambled away his wife, and had told a terrible lie to his acharya to get him killed in a war. This
He
person
outlived
is
them
walking
all.
all the
Yeah.
yes, yeah, Ashwatthama, and he is walking all the way to ascend heaven in his mortal form, and he is not being punished, and this lady is being punished because she loved one more than others. So I think I think this can bring us to a very important thing, is that so whether we should view this situation from an opposite angle. Maybe that the death is not all that bad. Death is a good thing. This is a conclusion of a very good thing that is called life. And evading death is not at all good. Like what happened to, just remember what happened to Ashwatthama. What and
Ashwatthama, yeah. That was a
Krishna,
curse. Absolutely.
yes, Krishna gave him the most brutal curse. And what was that curse? That I snatch death from your life. And whenever a
Yes.
person doesn't would not die, his life will become meaningless, because it is death
Mm.
that makes a life, the possibility of death and the certainty of death, that makes a life
That
so
makes living more, yeah,
beautiful. Every single
exactly.
moment of that life may become so pleasant, just
Yeah.
because it will have to end at some point of time. So Yudhishthira didn't fall. It is, I have to just look at it as a metaphor, because Yudhishthira didn't fall in the it was shown like this because Yudhishthira was punished for his um, misdeeds. It was not that for me. I may sound that I'm assessing in an inverted manner, uh, but for me, I think that it's Mahabharata is actually it is ultimately it becomes a conflict between mortality versus immortality, and where Mahabharata actually hails mortality, the mortal world, these mortal things, and a particular thing with a definite end. This is the best thing, and we have to celebrate it.
Okay, coming to my final question now, Mallar. What is your biggest learning from mythological studies so far?
My biggest learning is the concept of peace. What is peace, Indrani? We often use the word peace as an antonym of war. But a little bit after studying Mahabharata, a little bit, very little bit, I should say that.
Mhm. You're being very humble here.
No, actually, I'm being realistic. So whatever restricted study I have done, I've reached a realization that actually peace has nothing to do with war. Because if you study the Shanti Parva, if you delve into Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, this kind of a realization will dawn on anyone. But peace is a state. It's a particular state. It's a particular it's a qualification that one has to acquire, and that acquire within himself or herself. It's a kind of shelter, and it will be immune to all other earthly happenings, and he will be untouched. It will be completely created by himself, where he will hide and he will spend his entire life. The peace is a home. peace is a surreal home that one has to create within his own mind, within his own self, and he has to. And this is his ultimate shelter. This has nothing to do with war. Absence of war doesn't ensure peace. A crematorium is a very peaceful place. Apparently, it's a very quiet place, but it is not a peaceful place. A battlefield after the war is strewn with dead bodies and carcasses and these things, and there is no deans and bustles of the war. There is no noise of the war anymore. But doesn't mean that that place is peaceful. This is the aftermath of war. Aftermath of war is not peace. Peace is entirely a different thing that one has to acquire.
Correct.
Through lifelong penance and other exercises, and exercises means, I think, spiritual or other philosophical exercises. One has to attain peace. One has to create that home of peace within himself.
Right. On that very poignant note, Mallar, I think we've come towards the end of the session. Yash, over to you. Thank you, Mallar.
Thank you, Indrani.
I'm sure that after listening to today's conversation, the young viewers will be encouraged to read more about the epic Mahabharata and learn from the rich roots of our mythology. At the outset, I'd like to thank Mallar Chatterjee sir and Indrani Gangulee ma'am for joining us today. We wish to get to hear you
Thank
both
you.
again and equally enlightened as we all are today. And for my dear massive audience, I'm sure that after witnessing this conversation, you all are taking home an enriched version of yourself, just as I am. Thank you for joining us today. Until I see you the next time, this is Yash Dikshit signing off.
Raisoni Group, a vision beyond.